This massive tentacled monster turned out to be the sea god worshipped by local residents. Even the waves stirred up as it turns could capsize any vessel. Even human warships are completely powerless against it. What is even more despairing is that this giant beast is charging madly toward the world's busiest port. The monster legacy, Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, Strike, which everyone has been waiting for a week, has finally arrived. The female protagonist, a high-level boundary guard, and her team, in an attempt to rescue Shaw, trapped in the hollow earth, unintentionally released an otherworldly giant beast. Kong, the guardian of Skull Island. Inside the helicopter, Keiko and the others all looked grim, knowing this giant beast would bring immense trouble to humanity. Before long, everyone arrived at the mods down, failing to notice a bug crawling down from the tail of the plane. At this time, the combat command room was already in a state of chaos. The Supreme Commander, Natalie, had been attacked on Skull Island and her whereabouts were still unknown. Moreover, due to strong magnetic field interference, they could not contact headquarters. According to the protocol, the highest-ranking officer, Tim, acted without authorization and invaded a Monarch outpost. However, Tim understood Shaw's abilities and character well, and he also had some complaints about the actions of certain people at headquarters. He decided to ignore this instruction on the pretext that the fax machine was malfunctioning. After all, the upcoming operation still relied on this experienced veteran. While Shaw was watching the beast's move, Tim blurted it out. Keiko nodded. Those were the original words spoken by Billy, and the core was the never-ending pursuit of truth. Order for full speed ahead. However, a very realistic problem faced everyone. This ship was not an attack vessel, and even if they caught up with the monster, they couldn't do anything to change the situation. Shaw then thought of the drones on the deck, learning they were equipped with sonar equipment. He and Keiko exchanged a look. Both were very certain that this beast was extremely sensitive to infrasound signals, and they could use the drones to release sound waves to interfere. Everyone covered their faces and sighs. With the only drone destroyed, they were completely out of options against the sea monster. At this time, inside the cabin, Kate walked out of her bedroom and was surprised to see bloodstains all over the hallway. Following the trail forward, she actually ran into that strange beetle. Kate instinctively grabbed a fire extinguisher, but perhaps due to being too nervous, she forgot to pull the safety. Although the beast stopped its pursuit, the huge waves it kicked up still crashed toward the speedboat. Fortunately, Shaw's speed was fast enough, and he wasn't hit by the giant waves. Everyone in the outpost breathed a collective sigh of relief, and that injured beetle quietly attached itself to the giant beast. Keiko's eyes flickered, suddenly recalling a similar scene years ago on an island in Chile. Back then, the exploration trio, led by the landlady, came to a hidden cave. There they saw the tentacled monster worshipped as the sea god by the local residents. The observant Billy also made a new discovery. In an inconspicuous corner of the wall, there were dense carvings of strange beetles. Every certain distance, there were also several carved lines. A look of excitement gradually appeared on Billy's face. He hurried. Earlier on the cave wall, Billy discovered those carved lines were actually a subtle map. The direction it marked was very likely the migration route of the sea monster. Billy planned to go back to the archives in Santiago first to see if there were records of giant creatures appearing on these routes. He felt this was the best way to track the Titan beasts. However, Keiko wanted to stay on the island for a few more days. They had tossed and turned at sea for 3 weeks to get here, so why give up just after discovering some clues? Billy was already lightheaded from the discovery and insisted on getting ahead of the monster to the next habitat. Shaw also chimed in, saying that the islanders didn't welcome them anyway, so it was better to leave early. However, Keiko was a person of great principle. Once she decided on something, studying the sea god mentioned by the islanders. Little did they know that this hasty decision would eventually cause dissatisfaction among the local residents. The bar landlady's expression was grim. She had tried to persuade Keiko to leave several times last night, but she never thought she would stay on this island. All subsequent consequences would have to be borne by them. After sending Billy off, Shaw and Keiko returned to the cave to look for clues. The observant Keiko suddenly felt the ground shaking slightly. She took out a sonar collector and listened carefully, confirming the sound source was coming from the seabed. As the two prepared to go to the seaside to continue sampling, the bar landlady and a local villager suddenly approached them. The two acted out of character. Instead of being angry about Shaw and Keiko's unauthorized stay, they solemnly apologized. They explained that the islanders were very xenophobic and naturally superstitious, fearing that if outsiders came, the gods they worshipped would not appear. Today happened to be the island's annual worship day, and the landlady solemnly invited Shaw and Keiko to participate. Keiko saw this as a good opportunity to repair the relationship between the two parties, so she agreed without hesitation. The group soon arrived at the activity square. Looking at the bustling crowd, Keiko couldn't help but remark that she didn't expect so many people to live on this island. The landlady introduced this as the ritual to worship the sea god, which every villager must attend to pray for a bountiful catch. At this time, a local villager brought over a few glasses of wine, which Keiko and Shaw drank without suspicion. Next was the part where the villagers sang and danced. Both of them simultaneously felt their heads spinning, and their feet uncontrollably ran into the middle of the crowd. Just as the atmosphere on the field became increasingly ambiguous, Keiko was the first to the square. After everyone worked together to hang it high, a man wearing a fish crown swung a long knife with force, literally slicing open the fish's snow-white belly. The bar landlady knelt on the spot until her forehead was smeared with the blood of the large fish. Her eyes suddenly became cold and sharp. Keiko and Shaw stood there stunned until they realized the surrounding villagers had all dispersed. At this time, Keiko felt the familiar vibration again, only this time it was even stronger. In the next second, both of them widened their eyes as dense swarms of strange beetles rushed down from the top of the mountain. Shaw and Keiko were so scared they ran for their lives. The streets in the village were soon occupied by the beetles. They wanted to ask the villager, "Friends who like it, please continue to follow. See you next time."